Welcome in to Probox TV's Big Fight Breakdown. That's right, it's going down June 29th. Super flyweight title on the line. Two great names, Bam Rodriguez taking on Gallo Estrada, two best fighters in the division. It's about 24 versus 34. It is about experience versus youth and power. It's going to be a great showdown. Jimmy Smith in studio joining us via Zoom. Of course, we have Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, and ESPN boxing analyst Timothy Bradley. Gentlemen, about this fight itself. Chris, I know you're taking time in Portugal, but we love interrupting your vacation for big fights. When you look at this fight, the more experienced Estrada, he's avenged every loss on his record. 3 losses, he's avenged all of them. What are your thoughts on him and his ability to overcome the young buck in this fight?
Well, if there's ever going to be a fight to talk about that's going to interrupt my vacation, this is a good one. I love this fight, Jimmy, so I appreciate that. And you said that, the best in the division. These are some of the best fighters in the world today. These are guys that are both in the top 10 pound for pound on almost everyone's list, certainly on mine. This is a fantastic matchup. Yes, it is the old lion and the young tiger coming up. Like that's what we're dealing with in this fight. But I think Bam is just a special type of fighter. He's going to be around for a very long time. I think he's going to dominate these lower divisions. But he has to get by a guy like Estrada. And he has never been an easy task for anyone in the world. Like you said, he's beaten everybody he's ever been in the ring with. He comes back and beats the guys who beats him. He's beaten Rung Visai. He's beaten Chocolatito. He's beaten Quadras. This would be like the last stand against the last guy in the division that he would have to beat to be the man. But that man is Bam Rodriguez. And not only am I a huge fan of Bam Rodriguez in terms of just watching him for entertainment style, I think stylistically, I think technically, I think his absolute overall ability, he is a phenomenal fighter. I cannot wait for this fight. This is my favorite fight on the upcoming calendar. And even though these guys are super small, they pack in a ton of action. Very much looking forward to this fight. And I mean, we have an all-time classic on our hands here, potentially. I mean, hopefully everything works out the way it should and we get that. But very, very exciting fight. And people at home should really be tuned in for this night.
Paulie, you've been on both sides of this equation, as the one coming up and the one defending your spot as the veteran. How does the veteran in Estrada, how does he come out with the win, as Chris said, against one of the most talented guys in the world, pound for pound?
It's interesting because you talk about the need to win the fight, but just the fact that these fights get made now. This year has been a very interesting year for boxing. We're getting a lot of really good fights. If you notice the schedule, it's been really tough to call fights. All my friends that are bettors, here we're fortunate on Probox TV. We have the better side that wins most of the time. But a lot of my betting friends, they've had some trouble this year because the schedule has been one that has made such great matchups, such evenly matched fights that it's been that exciting. I don't know. With Estrada, you got to be able to match the energy of the youthful Chocolatito. I mean, the youthful.
Bam Rodriguez, yeah.
Too many names.
I know.
Youthful Bam Rodriguez, who's been just flying right now, both on the level of skill and the level of energy as well. But in these lower weight classes, a lot of these fights are fought at high energy. Can Estrada try to maintain the intensity? He's been a guy who at his best also fights at high intensity. You got to be able to match intensity. You got to be able to match skill. It's one of these fights that you really salivate looking at it, just like the champ Chris was discussing. And honestly, it's one of those fights that not only you're getting two of the best, but you're also getting a solid style matchup because these two guys really don't make bad fights. You look at anytime either one guy fights, you're always excited and you're always looking forward to watching the fight, and it's always entertaining. But you get to watch them both ply their trade as being among the best because they win, and then also now they're going up against one another. So it's a double dose of fun. What were those old Doublemint gum candy? Everything is double. Well, this is double the fun, double everything here, double the action, and I can't wait to see it.
Now, the Doublemint twins, we remember them very, very well. Got me through my childhood. Now, Timothy, when it comes to
old enough.
Exactly, if you're old enough, you remember. Tim, I got to ask you, man, a 47-fight veteran in Estrada, how do you make that experience a factor in the fight?
Well, you can make it a factor, but I'm going to just tell you guys this, that, man, like, Estrada's been out of the ring for a very, very long time. I think it's somewhere around a year, well over a year, almost 2 years now he's been out of the ring. And then he comes back and he faces this young, talented, hungry fighter top 10 quality fighter, man. I mean, it tells you something about who Estrada is. One, as a fighter, he's a legend, a living legend, still in the sport. But it also states that, like, he believes that he can win this fight. I wouldn't come back after being this long out of the ring and facing a guy like Bam Rodriguez. Hell no. Why would I do that? This guy is not even taking a tune-up fight. Another thing you got to put in that you got to look at, guys, is that when I went back and I watched the Sarumba side fight, the first time he fought him, not the second, the first time. Sarumba side, he fought him from the southpaw position. Well, he gave him all the problems and all the fits in the world. It was almost like Estrada had a hard time dealing with the southpaw style. So when I look at that and I look at the fact that he's fighting a younger, hungry, a guy that can press forward, a guy that can box off his back foot as well as Estrada. I mean, it's going to be It's going to be dangerous. One, it's going to be hard. Excuse me, not Estrada, but Bam Rodriguez. It's going to be really hard to beat a guy like Bam Rodriguez if I'm Estrada. He's going to have to put the pressure on. He's going to have to land right hands, of course. But I see it being a difficult task for him, and I see Bam Rodriguez pulling away late in the fight.
And that's what we're about to get into, the strategy for the young, hungry Bam Rodriguez. How does he shine? Not just winning, but looking good in a huge fight. We'll discuss it when we come back.
June 28th, live from the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C., WBA Super Featherweight World Champion Lamont Roach Jr. will defend his title against undefeated challenger, fearless Fergal McCrory of Ireland. Catch all the action live in Washington, D.C. on Probox TV, or even better, download the Probox TV app.
It's going down June 28th, the homecoming for the champ Lamont Roach Jr. going to D.C. to defend his title against the hard-hitting Irishman. Fergal McCrory, undefeated, confident, works the body extremely well, but Roach said, I'm putting his lights out in front of my hometown crowd. It's going to be a great fight. Don't miss it here on Probox TV. We're discussing June 29th. That's right, a showdown. Bam Rodriguez versus Gallo Estrada. Tim, you discussed it going to the break, that you think Rodriguez has what it takes to pull away early. What do you expect out of the young buck in this fight?
Aggression. I expect him to push the pace on the older legs of Estrada. I expect him to beat him to the punch. He's a lot quicker. He understands how to fight against orthodox fighters. He's seen him his entire career. Whereas I think a guy like Estrada, he fought some southpaws in the past. Again, Sarumba side. Let me go back to that fight again. But the first time he fought him, it was like he just struggled with positioning. He was landing right hands here and there. He has a nice little check left hook as well that he looks to catch and time guys on the way in. However, he's going to need to be more than just that. This is a guy that has a lot in his arsenal, a guy that understands how to box you from the outside and changes angles. I mean, he has punching power as well. And then you put the volume on top of that, man, and the brain that he has. I mean, it's going to be a difficult task for Estrada, man. He's going to have to knock out and maybe even catch and hurt a guy like Bam Rodriguez in order to get some sort of respect or even win on the scorecards, man, because I see Bam Rodriguez taking this fight. I even see a possible stoppage late for Bam Rodriguez against a fighter of Rodriguez's caliber. Just say that.
Paulie, when you look at this fight, Rodriguez coming off a 9th round stoppage of Sonny Edwards. That was in December. What are your thoughts on how he's looked recently and how that will translate into this fight should he be successful?
I mean, that was looked at as a huge fight. I mean, Edwards was coming with a lot of hype from the UK. He was obviously a champion. He generated a lot of hype himself, big personality as well. It was a fight that, sort of was like worlds colliding. The big name fighter in this weight class from the UK against Bam. These lower weight classes are gaining a lot of traction, a lot more traction than we've seen in the past. Certain generations obviously gain more traction than others, but this one is one of those generations. It's got guys like Edwards and guys like Rodriguez and guys like Estrada and guys like Chocolatito and so on and so forth, and several others, And I think that was also one of those heavily hyped matchups, two young guns sort of coming up. up. They're looking to really cement themselves. The winner was probably looking at pound for pound status, which I think Bam has achieved. And it was not the fact that he just won it. He was able to win it with flying colors. He was able to impress. He was able to basically dismantle Edwards, who was coming in on a high himself, and it was coming in with a lot of momentum himself. And Rodriguez did a number on Edwards, and Rodriguez showed not only a superiority to a guy like Edwards, who was coming in with a lot of momentum, but showed a superiority and a fact that you got to put a kid like this, you got to start considering him on the pound for pound list, and that's what essentially he's done.
Chris, when you look at this fight, the fight we're talking about against Edwards, that was at flyweight, moving up a weight class. How do you get a young buck like this to develop into a new weight class, taking on a guy who's very experienced at that weight class? Could that be a factor, that old man strength? How do you get over it?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is actually Rodriguez returning to flyweight because he went back down, after he won his title against Quadras, and then campaigned there for a little bit, beat Rungvisai, and then he went back down. Fought a couple fights there, and then they had the super fight with Sonny Edwards. And Champ, to kind of shadow what you were saying about that fight, he showed a different fold in that fight. His boxing ability really, really impressed me. He was out jabbing Sonny Edwards, and Sonny is a boxer. He outboxed, outthought, out everything Sonny that night, and eventually got the stoppage. Up until that fight, I would have said this fight here against Estrada is a mirror match. They're just 10 years apart. And you got two guys who throw tons of punches, and they're volume guys. They're just combination punchers, and boom, they stay in the pocket, and they boom, 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 got back and forth. Super, super fun. But then Bam did what he did with Sonny. And I saw a different level to his boxing IQ. I saw his ability to adapt to the opponents that he has in front of him. I saw a way that he can figure out how to use a great word, Paulie, dismantle his opposition. I see Bam doing that once again. He might want to just go bang tit for tat like he always has with Estrada, but he might go out there and use his jab as well. And then when he wants to pick and choose when to firefight then. And him being younger, as young as he is, having that youthful exuberance combined with that boxing ability and that ability to change in and out of that style, that makes him nearly impossible to beat. Estrada's chance is to be able to catch him in the middle of these punches. Estrada punches with you. He catches you, he catches Bam with something, he hurts him. That's his shot. He's going to have to go into the lion's lair and exchange punches and try and land and hurt that chin. If he can't hurt Bam, I don't see how he wins this fight.
What is your prediction? How do you think this fight ends? Paulie, I'll start with you.
I think Rodriguez pulls away and starts to get a more and more comfortable decision each and every round. This thing starts out competitively, but I think he shows his class, also his youthful exuberance, and he pulls away with a wider decision.
Tim, what do you think, man? How does this fight end?
I think that Bam's gonna stop him. I think he's gonna stop him. He's gonna show the world that he's one of the best. Yeah, that is a huge statement. I think he's prime and ready to pass the torch over to Bam Rodriguez. Younger guy, has shown his power, shown his class, and he continues to do so. And I think he's going to get the stoppage against Estrada.
Chris, do you see that star-making finish in this fight? What's your prediction?
And people are going to say Tim is crazy for saying that, but I don't think so. I don't think that's a crazy statement at all. I could see it, but I think Estrada makes it at the end. I think we're looking at an all-out war, but I think Bam is just going to be a step ahead all night long. And I see him winning a highly competitive but not that close fight.
Yeah, I think he starts pulling away every round. He starts separating himself. The cream starts rising to the top, and little by little, he gets a little more comfortable after starting.
I think he loses only a few rounds. I think Bam is going to be very, very dominant.
What kind of performance will it be? That's what we were asking ourselves about Teofimo Lopez after he became a star, but up and down since then. We'll talk about his next fight and hear from him after this. Welcome back into Probox TV's Big Fight Breakdown. We talk about stardom at 140 pounds. You have to talk about Teofimo Lopez and his future. Not thrilled about the matchmaking for this fight. Boxing Scene's Tris Dixon caught up with him.
I hear this rumor that gets spread around. It's like, what Teofimo are we going to get? You're going to get the guy that always gets his hand raised. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get the guy that always knows how to win, regardless of what it looks like. As the competition goes and gets tougher, this is the things, This is why you see all these other fighters, they look phenomenal, but at what class of fighters are they facing? So just because this one time I'm doing something similar to their degree, people shouldn't complain. You know, I've always faced the toughest fighters in the world, including Josh Taylor, who was and during that time undisputed world champion. You know, and undefeated. You know, beat everyone in that weight division of 140 pounds. Now, you know, we go into this part where we are just trying to stay active. You know, I spoke to the lawyer of Jeremy from Top Rank. I spoke to the team. I spoke to everyone in Top Rank, and I said, listen, I just want 3-4 fights this year. Just get me active. You know, if we can't get these unification fights going on, if we can't get these other champions to want to face us because they have their own agenda, they have their own plans with these fighters from different networks and from different promoters, then just get me to get in the ring and fight, because that's the most important part, right? Everybody complains about, I don't fight this guy, I don't fight that guy, and when I do, they're looking for somebody else. So all I'm saying now at this point is just staying active and feeding my family with this and giving the fans what they want, and that's entertainment. I never did it for the fame. I never did it for the popularity purpose of it. I just did it to be the best fighter in the world. You know, I think that's really what I did as a young kid. Was I wanted to be the best fighter in the boxing game. That's it. Number one of everything. You know, and you know, look at this. I'm only 26. You know, the other guys that they're rooting for, like Inoue and Crawford and all them, they're on their way out or they're in their 30s already. You know, I'm a baby, and look how much I've done in so much in the landscape. You know, 2-time linear world champion, just at all this at 25. Really, the first male 2-time undisputed world champion, all by the age of 25. So I got everything done earlier and faster than all of them. So whatever people want to say, they could go and, you know, do what they want with it. But I understand that it's just competition. And I look forward to really being the best version of myself in this fight and moving forward to the next ones. And whatever has to be planned for September, whatever is planned for me in December, you know, we're ready for it.
Your name is one of the ones that always comes up in this really rich mix between 135 and 140.
Yeah.
Who's on the shopping list? Is there someone that you feel like you need to have on your resume to cement your legacy against? And who's the biggest fight out there for you?
I believe the only one I have left to cement my legacy in that degree and having that triple crown that I'm looking for and aiming for, you know, and the reason why I came back to even add more to my legacy is Terrence Crawford. You know, Terrence Crawford is someone I definitely want to have on my resume, you know, and definitely want to show the world why I am arguably not just number one, but the best fighter that they've seen in a long time.
But that's you shopping north, like around 135, 140, you know, there's Loma, Shakur, Javante.
Yeah,
Henry,
but
do you want to get in a mix to have like a Four Kings style thing with all those guys?
No. I think I'm the only one that actually stood on the Four King emblem. You know, I believe that I faced actually all linear world champions and undisputed champions. You know, they have yet to even fight those type of fighters, despite the Haney and Garcia situation. Look how it flipped on them, you know, so with the Austrian and everything. So I can't really say that those guys are something that I'm eyeing for, you know. I'm at the point where I'm on a different road than them. You know, my path is so much different from them. Obviously, you could tell with the accolades I've done so far. You know that, Trish, I could retire today, right? Again, right? And actually wait 3 to 5 years and be inducted in the Hall of Fame. You know, so imagine that, you know, before even turning 30. So at this point in time, my whole thing is I love the sport too much to let it go like that. And, you know, I'm aiming north because that's where I'm headed.
Interesting words, of course, from Teofimo Lopez, Jimmy Smith in studio, Paulie Malignaggi, ESPN analyst Timothy Bradley, and Chris Algieri joining us via Zoom. Paulie, I'll start with you. This is exactly what you complain about, is kind of these fantasy matchups. I want Terrence Crawford, who's at 154, maybe campaigning even heavier than that. No regard for the people who are actually in his weight class. What do you think of his words and about the competition out there, man?
You know what? I can see Teofimo feels like, okay, I've accomplished all the things that these younger guys who are usually my age are still trying to accomplish. So I want legacy fights. I want dream fights. But at the same time, sometimes Teofimo pulls himself back unwittingly, because he'll have a subpar performance here and there. I mean, we've seen the Kambosos fight, the Jermaine Ortiz fight, the Sandor Martin fight.
Yep.
In between these stellar, amazing performances that you look at Teofimo and you're thinking, wow, this kid is one of the most special things I've ever seen. Then all of a sudden he comes back down to earth and you're like, what am I watching? Is this the same kid I watched 6 months ago? This is the same kid I watched last time? You start to wonder if you're watching the same person. His boxing has like a Jekyll and Hyde,
Inconsistency, yeah.
Inconsistency. I mean, evolution to it. He's up and down all over the place. So it prevents people from taking him super seriously when he talks about these legacy fights. But at the same time, I feel like he's chased a lot of the biggest names, even around his weight class throughout his young career. He made a great point. He's only 26 years old. He's been the one that chases the tougher fights at a younger age, more so than a lot of guys in boxing when they're coming up the ladder. A lot of guys in boxing when they're coming up the ladder are trying to get maybe like a faded ex-champion, or maybe a guy who looks good on paper, but in reality is a little bit past. I mean, he had gunned for the top guys consistently, and he is done it, to me, more than almost everybody else. Maybe David Benavidez has also gone for them. He wasn't able to get a lot of them, but Teofimo in that regard is somebody you have to commend and really appreciate. But from the other side of it, he's got to get his own act together in terms of being more consistent as well. But I'll tell you what, one thing he does got going for him. One of the biggest things he does got going for him, that Goodfellas pick in the background, now you can't miss. That's it. That's real Brooklyn. The kids repping Brooklyn. You you talk about all this ups and downs of his boxing, but you do an interview with that Goodfellas picture in the background, you won me over, kid. That's it, champ.
Right, but Chris, let's have you talk about it. Gangsters aren't afraid of anybody, right? Gangsters take on anyone. The idea that he's looking far north of his division and not the stellar fighters in that division. Frustrating as a boxing fan, yes?
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here, and I absolutely hate saying that sentence, right? That trope that everyone says. A lot to unpack here, but he did say a lot of things. A lot of things I agree with, and a lot of things I do not. So, yes, he is one of those guys who fights the difficult fights. He goes after the guys, like you said, Champ, Paulie, that, he's sought after these big fights. He also fights a lot of these tough guys that people don't want to fight. The Sandor Martins of the world, the Jermaine Ortizes of the world. Those are tough outs, and you don't get a lot for beating them. And then when you get raked over the coals when you don't stun them. And so he's always been that guy. He takes the fight. I've joked before in the past that he's a matchmaker's dream, because he's like, yeah, line them up. I'll fight everybody. And whether I look good or I don't, I always win, which is how he opened that statement. But then there's other things that he says. First of all, I don't like the fact that he focuses on how young he is. You got a lot more to do, bro. Like this is you're early in your career. You say you love the sport too much to leave. Well, stop patting yourself on the back and keep working. You got a lot more to do. And as talented as you are, there's a ton left for you to do and that you can achieve in this sport. And then when you start calling out guys for these fantasy matchups, when you're starting to chase dragons and gorillas, like I always say, like the Terrence Crawfords of the world.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Yeah, lions, tigers, bears, dragons. You start chasing these kinds of fights, it turns the fans off, because you have a ton of tigers that you can actually fight all around you. And you're chasing guys that don't even mention your name in interviews. Crawford never brings up Teo, because it's not a real fight. It's not an option on the table. So I think he needs to focus more on the guys that are right around him, because there's a lot of tough guys around him. I don't see how Teo is going to be jumping up 3 weight classes to fight Terrence where he's at right now. He's fighting at 54 now for a world title against a very, very tough guy in Madrimov, and Teo's a small 40-pounder. Yes, he's a good puncher. Yes, he's very good at the fight, at the weight class, but I don't know. I like what he said. I don't like what he said.
Tim,
Chris, he's the last one standing. Yeah. Listen, he's the last one standing at 140. Literally the last one standing at 140. Garcia can't make 140 pounds.
Weight is crazy.
You got Haney. You got Haney, which could happen. Which can happen. The Haney fight can happen. But he beat the best guy at 140, who was Josh Taylor. He beat the best guy.
I agree. He's the best at 40. I've been saying that since before Matias got beat last week.
And then Matias got beat. Matias, who we considered the boogeyman, who I thought was the boogeyman.
You guys did. I didn't.
He gets beat, and Teo was the last one standing at the end of the day. But he likes challenges, man. He's the type of fighter that fights to the level of his competition. So if he fights a guy like Crawford, he's going to show up and he's going to show out. Just like he fought Loma.
I agree with you, but Taylor. How is that even possible?
So he wants to go to 147. and face Crawford, who is I think he's the 3-belt holder there now. He wants to face Crawford. I don't see anything wrong with it at the end of the day. Now, I don't think he beats Crawford. However, I like the kid's personality. I like the fact that he wants to challenge the best guys out there because not everybody wants to beat
but also
or fight guys like that.
I want to fight Anthony Joshua tomorrow. Doesn't mean
but Chris, I'm gonna defend Tim here. You know why I'm gonna defend Tim here? Because here's the thing. He does call these guys out. They don't want to fight him. He even said they got their own thing going on. They got different networks. They all make excuses. People don't really want to fight Teofimo Lopez.
They don't want to fight him. You're right.
If that's the case,
I'm the biggest Teo fan here. I'm just saying, calling out Crawford, a guy who never talks about you in an interview.
Otherwise he's gonna get stuck fighting the Steve Claggets of the world, who are solid but not big enough names to where he gets the best of himself going. He's one of those guys, like Tim said. He fights the level of his opposition, and sometimes it's hard to get up for a guy like a Claggett who's dangerous but doesn't have a big reputation. So you can sort of underestimate guys like that.
How I started my intro with this. He fights all these tough guys. I appreciate that. I like that about him. But man, you
can't put a gun in people's heads. You know, you can't make them fight you. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. I mean,
Matias at 140.
On another note, Matias, the best guy closest to you. All right, call it Jaron Ennis then. Like, if you want to fight the best, or you want to fight the best, or you want to fight the guy who's going to give the biggest payday. It's a different thing.
He wants to fight the best guy that's going to give him the best payday at the same time. At the same time. So he's more about legacy. As you can hear him in his voice, he's like, yo, I'm a 25-year-old, and literally, like, I could be considered in a boxing Hall of Fame. He can, truly. With his resume and what he's done.
He's already in.
For sure, he could cement his way already, or could have. I don't know. I'm not in charge of that. But just looking on who he beat, I'm like, okay, yeah. He
already in.
But the Claggets of the world, the Claggets of the world. The reason why he's facing Claggett is because he don't have a dance partner. Nobody wants to face him. Matias had an opportunity to sign with Top Rank and face him, but he went to the Eddie Hearn route. You know, Haney chose Garcia. You know, Garcia can't make 140. Who else is there for him to fight? There's really not a lot of big names. So he's saying, let me go to 47. Let me face the king there. Let me face.
What about fighting? I know. What about fighting Ryan Garcia at 147?
Gentlemen, there are a million options for him at 140 and north, but the question is, he has a big fight coming up against a guy who is unheralded, and how he performs against him might define his options moving forward. That is the difficult part, and we'll see how he rises to that challenge. This has been the Big Fight Breakdown. Some big ones coming up. We'll see how they do. Ton of storylines. We'll see you after the next one.